Hello everyone and welcome to the Hugh Hattrick channel and our Formula 1 testing update podcast. I hope you're all well and having a really good day. So in this video we're going to show you all the latest news from testing. We've had day 2 and currently as I do this video we're actually on day 3. But we'll get right up to date with all of the testing news. So here we go. So F1's day 2 testing, which of course is a privately run test at Barcelona because the testing at Bahrain starts a little bit later on in the month. But the big news yesterday was that it was wet. But Ferrari was there and Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc were driving. McLaren sat out the day. That was dominated by adverse weather, but Isaac Hadjar had a huge crash and that of course brought the running to a premature conclusion for Red Bull. So on this test, each team is permitted 3 days of running during the 5-day shakedown, and they don't have to do it consecutively. So that's quite good. So many of the teams are in attendance, and they all had been suggesting that they were unlikely to run on Tuesday because of the rain. But Ferrari braved the conditions, and Charles Leclerc emerged from the garage as soon as the track went live at 9 o'clock. But even before then, Haas had announced it would not be running, preferring to spend the day digesting data from Monday, during which the team is believed to have completed 154 laps, a greater distance than any other team. Although, when I saw the testing times on Monday, there was quite a variation. Red Bull looked about 2 seconds faster than Mercedes, but they say at this time, because they're trying different things, different technology on the car, different types of setups, it's very difficult to compare those times. So hopefully there's not going to be any kind of big gaps like that by the time they get to Melbourne in March. But let's go through. Now, Max Verstappen had also gone off track. That was at turn 5 on his outlap. So it had been briefly red flagged for that. So even the world champions can have a few difficulties. But it was a lot of drizzle and then it intensified to a lot of rain around about 11 o'clock. And Mercedes confirmed that it wouldn't be taking to the track. So who did actually get to the track? And let's see exactly what happened. Now, Lewis Hamilton took over from Leclerc in the afternoon while he was having his new race engineer this season. It's understood he'll be working with Leclerc's longtime engineer, Brian Brosey, during the shakedown. And Isaac Hadjar took over from Verstappen in the afternoon, but he spun late on and hitting the barrier at turn 14. That's the fast right-hander, which leads on to the main straight and bringing out the red flag. Let's have a little look here at the imagery. We can have a picture of, that's the Red Bull. It does look rather nice, I have to admit. Cars definitely look much kind of, because they're a wee bit smaller, but the wheels are quite big still, so it's kind of like an older style Grand Prix car. And I love that kind of, the rubber looks nice and thick, and that front nose does look rather good. Yeah, I think the cars have definitely gotten better. And one of the things I've noticed as well from watching them on the videos is that the sound is so much better. They're definitely louder and raspier. I was a bit concerned because with all these new engine regulations and having 50% of the power coming from the battery, I thought, is that going to really affect the engine sound a bit? Because, you know, the 2014 cars, they were so quiet compared to previous models. But this one is actually quite loud, so it does definitely look pretty good. So, in terms of the number of laps that the drivers did yesterday, Leclerc reportedly completed 64 laps, and Verstappen 27, Hamilton ran 56 laps, while Hadjar managed 51 before his shunt. So it made it a fairly successful day for Ferrari given the conditions, and slightly less so for Red Bull given how many laps it accomplished on Monday. And all we're hearing from the kind of pit reporters is that they can't, you know, that the teams are not running their kind of high performance setups yet. So there's still going to be a few days yet before we really see the kind of performance runs from the teams. Now, at the livery launch last week, McLaren made clear it was pushing to have a relatively mature car specification, which it would take through to the opening races, dictating a later arrival at the shakedown. It said it would run no earlier than Tuesday and would likely push to Wednesday if the weather proved inclement. The team is known to have arrived at the track and is preparing to run on Wednesday, Thursday and Friday. So, in fact, it will be live later on today. So it's only Aston Martin status, and also Williams confirmed that confirmed last week that its car would not be ready in time for the shakedown. In fact, I had heard rumours that the Williams car hadn't passed the crash tests. So we'll have to wait and see if that appears to be true or not. But they're missing this week's test, and Aston Martin, well, we just don't know what's happening there. But let's carry on. Now, the latest team to join Formula One, of course, is Cadillac, and it is at the test here at Barcelona, which I think is pretty good considering it's a new car, new team, and it's done quite well. Let's have a look at the car. I'll show you the picture here. This is, of course, from Autosport. It's got a number of interesting articles there. You've got a spoon central section at the front. You've got those twin fins on the side there, right in front of the two front tyres. It's got pull rods at the front as well. And it says here it's got a unique wakeboard design. If anyone knows what that is, feel free to write that in the comments. And it's got a hole at the back there for the diffuser. It's a high-in-it ramped side pod. So yeah, it does look rather nice. And it's always difficult for a new team to, when they join, to kind of catch up or make sure that their design is going to be competitive from the word go. How do you think it's going to do? Well, let us know in the comments. And if you like the content and want to keep up to date with Formula One news and our gaming and motorsport sections, then please hit that like button and subscribe. And we'd love to have you along in our community. Now, they were saying that the temptation for Cadillac might be to take a conservative route, but Cadillac hasn't. It features some genuinely intriguing design decisions, with some divergent from the following trends seen in 2026 cars. So, for example, while the form immediately puts one in mind of a Midland M16, with the dropped squared-off nose and sweeping front wing, the twin-fin end plates and odd curvature around the vortex tunnel demonstrate the attention to detail. The uniqueness continues around the front suspension package. For example, the positioning of the steering arms to align with the top wishbone is an interesting decision to make. One imagines that it services as a point of interaction for the wishbone's front leg, since there's no pushrod here to do this, as the front suspension runs with pull-rod activated rockers. Only Alpine has elected to run with a similar geometry, at least of the cars we've seen so far. And of course, this is taken from Autosport. But let me know what you think of the cars this year, and who do you think is going to be competitive. We will, of course, try and cover the tests at Bahrain later in the month, and also when the coverage starts for the Grand Prix in Australia, and then right the way throughout the year. So let's continue on. So there is a picture of the Red Bull RB22. It does look rather nice. A more squared off nose at the front there, but definitely looking pretty competitive. I think the Red Bull will be pretty strong. I think, for me, it's Red Bull and Mercedes, and then maybe Ferrari might not be too far away. Haven't really seen the McLarens yet, so we'll see how that goes. There you've got an Alpine. Again, looking rather good. There's those polished tyres, aren't they? It looks rather nice. Although, as you can see, the amount of wetness on the track there on slicks, that would be quite fun. But no, I like the look of these new cars. That's the Alpine A526. And then here we have, that looks like the Audi. This is the new Audi car. So, yep, with its grey, the familiar kind of silver and the four circles for Audi. How do you think they're going to do? They've taken over from Sauber, but of course with this new design, could be quite interesting. Maybe they'll do quite well. We'll have to wait and see how they get on. But here are some of the more pictures of the cars. Let's have a little look at that. This is going to be the McLaren. Looks rather nice again. I wonder if Lando will be able to defend his title as he did previously, or in terms of being competitive. Will McLaren have enough? Here we go. Here's the picture here. That you can see the different designs there. They've got MasterCard sponsoring them, but certainly a nice looking Formula One car. We'll carry on so we can get some more pictures. Here we are. Here's more of the details. So a heavy side pod undercut, ramped to side pod surface, two-piece barge board, a flat tunnel rear edge, and a drooping nose. So yeah, slightly different than some of the other cars, and the end plate has also been cut out. And I quite like those wheels as well. But yeah, let me know in the comments what you think of the McLaren and all the Formula One cars this year. It would be good to hear from you. And there you go. There is day 2 of testing at Barcelona. And let me know if I've missed anything. I probably have. But it's to give you a little idea of where people are. Let's see if we can get a testing time. So here are the times that I could manage to get from the webs out there, from the interweb, as they would say. Now, Max Verstappen in his Red Bull, he set a 1 minute 19.580, followed by Charles Leclerc, who was 1.284 seconds behind. And then Isaac Hadjar was 12 seconds behind, and Lewis Hamilton was 13 seconds behind. But as I say, they were not in their kind of performance testing setup. They were really trying to get laps done. And Lewis Hamilton did do 56 laps, with Charles Leclerc doing 64 laps and Max Verstappen only 27. So it's varying conditions, but it's been, I think, quite a good day. We're interested to see day 3, and I'll keep you up to date with more of that and the roundup as they finish the week off as well on Friday. I'll come back to you with another test session result. But let me know what you think in the comments. Thank you very much for watching. Drive fast, don't crash, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye just now.